Support comes from the Janice Hawkins Cultural Arts Park on the main campus of Troy University, featuring the International Arts Center, the Fred Nall Hollis Museum, and the Hua Baoju Gallery. More information at troy.edu/artspark.
From Troy Public Radio, this is In Focus, and I'm Carolyn Hutchison. There is more to the story of America than its 250th, and it involves Spanish galleons, conquistadors, and animals brought to the New World from Spain in the 1500s. So today and tomorrow, we visit with historian Michael Thoman, Director of Education and Interpretation for the Florida Public Archaeology Network, and Nicole Grenan, maritime archaeologist who has investigated Spanish shipwrecks off the Florida coast. Together, they have written the children's book, Luna the Cat, named after explorer Tristan da Luna, and we delve into Luna's story of how she arrived in America. This is part of our Pause for Animals series and our Storyline book series. Mike Thoman, welcome back to Troy Public Radio.
Well, thanks so much for having me back.
We are delighted that you're becoming a regular guest, so thank you very much.
I love being a regular.
Mike, you have a special guest with you today. Will you introduce her?
Yeah, well, with me today is my colleague and my co-author of a book we're going to talk about, Nicole Grenan.
Nicole, welcome to the program.
It's great to be here. Thank you so much for having me.
Both of you are here to celebrate the book Luna the Cat. Nicole, you did the illustration on the front of the book. Who is Luna the Cat?
Oh, well, Luna is the protagonist of our book, and he's a cat who is unwillingly thrown into a big adventure. So the story takes place in the year 1559, and it's based on some incredible research that archaeologists and historians have been doing at the University of West Florida for over 30 years at this point. And in 1559, we know from historical records that this was the first attempt of the Spanish to settle what we know now as Florida and the rest of the continental United States.
Mike, you know that we are all celebrating America's 250th. How does this story fit into that story?
Well, yeah, I mean, you can't really tell the story of the United States as it is today without including the earlier Spanish history of it, whether it's the Spanish contribution to literally allying with the early Americans during the Revolutionary War, or whether it was those earlier Spanish settlement attempts to kind of really explore and understand the landscape that we have today that is now part of the United States. So any part of the early Spanish conquistadors, expeditions, from the 1500s on, all that's connected eventually to what's now American history. So it's all very much part of it.
But we're talking about cats today and how cats fit into this story. Nicole, you did the illustration on the front of Luna the Cat, this book that is aimed for grades 3 through 6. So how do cats fit into this story? You're a maritime archaeologist.
Well, I think cats fit into this story in a couple of different ways. The first is based on the actual archaeology that has taken place on shipwreck sites related to this 1559 settlement attempt. On one of those shipwrecks, the remains of a cat were identified. And so for us, it was kind of a clear indication that maybe we could include a cat in our story about this part of our past. But also this book is geared toward younger audiences. We hope to get them engaged with that history. And, I have young child at home. Mike has kids at home. And we realized that kids really connect with animals. And so we decided to go with the cat because we have some really great information about the cat that was on one of these shipwrecks based on the archaeology.
Mike, this is about a special expedition. What was happening back in the 1550s?
So in the middle 1500s, the Spanish began to really be concerned about their fleet of ships that was sailing across the Gulf and then eventually back across the Atlantic to Europe. And basically, they were extracting natural resources from the New World and then shipping those back across the Atlantic. But in order to protect the fleet, the Spanish realized that they needed to have a permanent foothold somewhere along the Gulf and the Atlantic sides to help support the logistics behind moving all those ships and all those people and all those supplies, while at the same time recognizing that there were inherent dangers in doing that from some of their competing European powers that were trying to also get settlements and extract resources from the New World, in particular from the British and the French. With that kind of as the backdrop, the Spanish plan was to basically establish it at what's now Pensacola, because Pensacola had a naturally deep water port there that was ideal for getting their large galleons anchored in an area like that to help them come protected from hurricanes. And so the Spanish in the 1550s, the king and the governor of New Spain chose Pensacola for that location. And in charge of that expedition, they chose a really experienced conquistador, a guy named Don Tristan de Luna y Arellano, to put that into place.
And Nicole, speaking of animals, we understand that the Spanish explorers brought other animals with them, not only cats, but they are the piney woods cattle, which we know about in South Alabama. They're pigs. What other animals were associated with these expeditions?
It's interesting. The Spanish brought animals with them because they wanted to have a, a taste of home while they were out exploring new lands and conquering new lands for the Kingdom of Spain, which is one of the reasons why we have those cattle and wild hogs here in Florida. And we see the exact same thing on our shipwreck sites as well. So on these 1559 shipwrecks in Pensacola, not only did we find the remains of a cat, but we have the remains of other animals as well, including cattle, chickens. We find the remains of maybe animals that they didn't necessarily want to bring with them, but also things like black rats and beetles, these ship parasites that were eating off of the food that was supplying the expedition. So it's really quite interesting. They brought an entire ecosystem with them to the New World.
So, Nicole, that literally brings us back to your illustration on this wonderful book, Luna the Cat. Briefly tell us the story that children and their parents can learn.
It's a story that begins in Mexico. In Mexico, there's a family with a cat, a regular house cat, who doesn't like adventures, doesn't like the water, doesn't like doing anything except sitting by his warm fireplace at home. And when this family all of a sudden decides to move to the New World to be a part of this very first settlement attempt in what is now Florida, the cat goes with them and finds himself on an adventure sailing across the Gulf, arriving in the New World in what is now Florida. And, if you know the story of the 1559 settlement attempt, you know that they ran into disaster pretty quickly after arriving here in Florida. There was a major hurricane that took a tremendous toll on the settlement, on the people there, but also on the ships that were still anchored in the bay with most of their supplies. And so the story follows this cat as he goes on a ship, makes new friends, finds allies, is put through a terrible storm, and has to find his way back home to his family.
I love the part about him riding down the river on a log with some turtles.
Yes.
Let me ask both of you, we are running short of time. There is much more to the story of maritime archaeology and Pensacola Bay and these animals that fit right into your story of Luna the cat. Can we talk again?
Absolutely. I would love
Absolutely.
I want to thank you both so much for your time today.
Thank you for having us.
Yeah, it was great. We look forward to talking to you again soon.
That was Mike Toman, Director of Education and Interpretation for the Florida Public Archaeology Network, and maritime archaeologist Nicole Grenam. Tomorrow we find out from the authors more about the story of Luna the cat, brought to the New World aboard a Spanish galleon. Thanks for joining us today for In Focus, which is a podcast wherever you get your podcasts. I'm Carolyn Hutchison, and this is listener-supported Troy Public Radio.